Hello everyone, it's Shel from Paper Octio Studio. Today I'm sharing with you the what I did in April for Canvas Corp Brands Traveling Art Journal Project. Remember, these art journals are going all over the world for 12 months, and then they'll come back to us, to the original owners. So this month I am working in this small journal. It's pretty small. I left this part in to show you all the the pains I went through to try and keep the other pages that people had already done clean. This is the bad thing about working in a bound journal is that it's so easy to damage the previous page, and I don't want to ruin anyone else's work. So I put a tape around the edge. I put tapes in between so that nothing bled through the center where the stitching is. I put tapes around, I put deli paper in between. I mean, I did everything that I possibly could to try to keep all the rest of the other pages clean, and it didn't even work, and I'll show you. But I decided to do this technique with mists that I've done before with a different brand of mists. But of course, this is Canvas Corp Brands, so they own Tattered Angels. And so I'm going to be using the Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists, which are a shimmery water soluble mist. So the first thing I did was to paint the page black. I didn't use black gesso. I used Dylusions paint. I could have used gesso, but I just figured this covers really quickly and has a lot of pigment, and I figured it would seal up the page really nice. So with this technique, you're starting with a dark background. It wouldn't have to be black. It could be a dark blue or a dark green or a dark brown or something like that. But then the next step is to take a water-soluble mist and spray it heavily. I mean, you want to get a lot of color on there. And I flipped the book back and tried to keep, this was my another attempt to not mess up the other pages. So I have the pages like folded back, the whole book folded back, and then I'm doing it to each side using different greens and blues and a little bit of purple colors because I had an idea in mind. So these are the colors that I chose. And then you want to give it a really good dry. The next step is to use some light colored paint or gesso. I'm going to use white gesso and a stencil or two, and I just decided to use one stencil. This is the Roadmap stencil designed by, I think her name is Jill Berry, for Artist Seller. And because these mists are water soluble, they're like a watercolor, when you put the white paint on, the pigment in the mist, which is already there and dry, soaks into the paint. So the paint is wet and it's attracting that color and making like a pastel. So because I used different colors in different areas, I'm getting some light green, some light purple, some light blue, and that is the effect I want. I think this is a really cool effect to have these random pastel colors over the black background. So it's a fun little technique. I think originally it was designed, or the person who came up with it may have been Diane Reevely, that has Dylusions sprays, because those sprays absolutely refuse to be sealed. Forget about it. No matter how many coats of whatever you put on top of it, they're never sealed. So it also happens to work with Tattered Angels sprays as well. So then the next thing I did was to make a drawing over my background, and I'm using a white pastel pencil because the background is so dark that I can't see what I'm drawing if I use a graphite pencil like I normally do. And a pastel pencil will erase with a white eraser, so if I put a line in a completely wrong place, I can erase it. I didn't have to use the eraser all that much, but I know it's kind of hard to see what I'm drawing because of, you're not close enough and it's not bright enough and whatever, but it's a mermaid. The reason that I drew a mermaid is that the month of May, when I was making this, okay, so in order for this to be ready for the next month, I have to make this page in May and mail it by the 20th for the video to come out on April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day, by the way. So in May, there is an event going on called Mermay. And I hear it was started by an animator from Disney. And anyway, some people are doing a mermaid every day. I'm not doing a mermaid every day. I don't have time in May to do a mermaid every day, not even a quick one. But I did want to make a mermaid, so I decided to make it in this journal because I had found out that it was Mermay, which I think is funny, Mermay. What's even funnier is that today is the 4th of May, which you're not going to see this till June 1st because that's the way these things go. But may the 4th be with you. I found that one too. Another funny thing. But anyway, back to what I'm doing. So I've got my drawing on there. I can see it even though you can't see it very well. And I'm taking some Dilutions paints, and I really overserved myself on these paints. I ended up having to scrape them off onto other paper. I would have wasted a ton of paint. But I got out the Calypso Teal and the Jade. The Jade color I thought was too green, and so I wanted a little bit of teal to go with it. And then I also have some white gesso still left over from well, I might have put more out. I can't remember. But anyway, I'm just kind of blending those colors together a little bit to get the color that I want. You could have just gone with the Calypso Teal. Really, that's probably mostly what I got. I did add some of the Jade, but I don't know. It's pretty green. It's pretty green. Yeah. So I'm doing the technique that I think other people call it something else, and I can't remember what, but I call it exclusion, where I'm excluding the background so that the foreground shows in the foreground. Yeah, so that the main image shows. So I'm not going so crazy as to want every single bit of that beautiful texture to be gone, because I don't. But I'm mostly covering it up. I'm making it go away, pushing it back into the background. And I'm going to do that all around my mermaid, and then I have some weeds growing in on one side, and then over on the other side she's opening up an oyster to get a giant pearl out. So I'm going to leave that part to have the background texture. This takes a little bit, but it has a really cool effect. So pretty happy with it. I like to do this a lot. I know you've seen me do it before because I like it. That's why. So this is truly a mixed media art journal page because it has all different types of mediums on there. Got the mist, you got the acrylics, you got the gesso, you got the pastel pencil. So I didn't want to go look for more colors of acrylic paint. So I just decided to spray a couple colors of my Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist, a pink and a peach color. They're actually called Silk and Party Pink, I think. And just mix those colors into the gesso that I had left over. And make like a light peachy pink color for her skin tone. I don't remember if I mentioned that I had sealed this with clear gesso. I knew I was going to be painting over it, so I used my 2-inch brayer and sealed over the top before I started my drawing with a clear gesso. I didn't do a very good job, and so I'm still having a little bit of bleed through of the greens and blues that are underneath. So I'm having to put a few different layers onto her skin to get it to cover, as well as the fact that it's a black background. So, but then my peachy pinky color keeps turning kind of weird because I've got some bleed through from the other colors. I should have done a better job of sealing it, but I kind of just did a put a little bit on there and call it good kind of layer. I didn't want to mess around with it too long. So somebody was asking me about sealing water media. You can seal it with like a matte medium or a matte gel, or in this case I used the clear gesso. The only thing that you need to remember when you're doing that is that if you're going to use a brush to do it, you're going to smush everything around. Brushes, they're designed to go down into the tooth of the paper and smush it. And so better to use a brayer because you can just roll once over it, get a coat over it, and you're not messing around with what you have there and getting it all smushy. So I recommend a soft rubber brayer for sealing water media. That's my favorite way to do it. Another option is, of course, some type of a spray sealer, like a workable fixative, but even a workable fixative doesn't always seal everything up that well. And in general, I don't like spray things because they stink. I don't like the smell of the chemicals that they use to propel. So that's why I tend to use a soft rubber brayer. So I will link the brayer that I use all the time in the description box below, along with all the other materials that were used on this project, so that you can find them. Of course, all the Canvas Corp brand products will be the Canvas Corp brand shop, and then the stencil came from Artist Seller, so you're going to get a link to Artist Seller, and then everything else is from Amazon. So my next step is to add definition using my white and black Posca pens. This is the medium tip Posca pen. I don't know if you guys ever click on my links to Amazon for the Posca pens, but I buy them 3 at a time. That's how much I use these things. They write so well over anything. They write over the top of, the plasticky acrylic. They write over the top of collage. They're great. These are great pens. If I had to pick something that I had to have on a deserted island to do art, it would be Posca pens. Just because they're great. So if ever I can be on the design team for Posca, that would be great. I don't know if they have a design team, but I love their product. So I used the white pen to outline things that are in the background, like the weeds, the bubbles, and the oyster and pearl. And then I'm using the black pen to outline the mermaid herself. And as you can see, I left the cool pattern on the tail and the hair. That's what I wanted it for. So, and on the oyster as well, but mostly the tail and the hair. So once I have everything outlined, then I need to go in and do the features of her face, which are mostly obliterated already. So I bring in my graphite pencil because I can't really see the lines anymore that I originally drew, and I want to make sure that I get everything balanced, and so I want to use something that I can erase before I go in there with the black. I'm sure that makes sense to everyone. This is my favorite drawing pencil. It's the Pentel Graph Gear 1000 drafting pencil with a 2B lead. It's the .05 size. It's a really good pencil. If you like mechanical pencils for drawing, which I do. So I colored in her eyeballs with the white pen to lighten them up a little bit, and then I'm adding her features, going over my pencil lines with the black pen. So she has a face. I didn't want to leave her faceless. I continue to use mists, the same ones over and over basically that I used when I did the background, because I want the shimmer and a little bit of the color just for some highlighting and interest. So I'm spraying them on my palette. I need to go in, remember, and wash that palette though, because what's going to happen is I'm going to put white gesso on there, or white paint on there for something else, and it's going to get into the mists that are all over it and cause my white thing to change color. I know it's going to happen. Excuse me, didn't mean to yawn. I'm also using some of the mists mixed with the a little bit of gesso to do some shading and highlighting, a little bit of pink. I keep going over everything because the greens and blues from the background want to fade through. And then the final color that I'm using is a pearl. It's like a clear fluid with just a pearly, misty, pretty stuff in it. This is where I realized that her hand was backwards. I had the thumb on the wrong side. Hands are the bane of my existence. They are so hard to draw. And then I get it drawn and it's got the thumb on the wrong side. It's like her hand would have had to be completely twisted over in order to do anything. And that, yeah, you know, so I just painted over it with some of the same gesso, gesso mixed with pink mist, and gonna draw it over with the thumb on the correct side. I was watching I sometimes watch the tattoo competitions, because tattooing to me is art. It's just basically drawing, shading, and it's all the same stuff that I do, only it's on skin with needles. But I saw someone on one of those competitions make a hand backwards. Now, this thing is an art journal. It's not going to be the end of the world if the hand is backwards. That was on someone's skin and is permanent. So I'll bet that person felt really bad. So I'm just about done. I'm just finishing up a little bit of color in her eyes and refining a few things. And so if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment so I know you were here. Subscribe and turn the notifications on if you can. Share with your friends. Share, put it on Pinterest or share it on Facebook or something like that if you want to. And remember to go to the links below and click on the link to the blog post so that you can see everyone else's pages for the month of April. Or no, the month of May. Yeah, you're seeing this June 1st, but they're the ones that we did in May. It gets confusing. And that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.